Coming up on Network Africa today, Niger military junta says that ousted President Bazoum to be charged with high treason and undermining national security. UN peacekeeping mission in Mali exits from Mali town due to insecurity. Plus, dozens killed after Ethiopian army drone bombed protesters. Hello and welcome to the program on Channels Television. I'm Anne Mwawadu. We begin this week with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Saturday, Niger's coup leader Abdurrahmani Tchiani sent a delegation led by his defense chief, General Musa Salahu Barmu, to the Guinean capital, Conakry, to thank leaders there for their support, a sign of the junta's desire to affirm alliances as it stands up to regional and other powers. Their visit came as the Economic Community of West African States explored its options to restore civilian rule in Niger, including the potential military intervention following the July 26th ouster of President Mohamed Bazoum, the 7th coup in West and Central Africa in 3 years. Mamadi Doumbouya, who led a coup in Guinea in September 2021, did not say whether Conakry's support for the Niger junta would include military backing if ECOWAS decided to use military force. Mali and Burkina Faso had already said they will help defend Niger. Meanwhile, Niger's junta on Sunday said they'd gathered enough evidence to prosecute ousted President Mohamed Bazoum for high treason, following his imprisonment last month and the military's subsequent dissolving of the elected government.
In any event, the government of Niger has to date gathered the necessary evidence to prosecute before the competent national and international authorities the ousted president and his local and foreign accomplices for high treason and undermining the internal and external security of Niger. Following his exchanges with the nationals of foreign heads of states and heads of international organizations.
The minibus taxi drivers began demonstrating on August the 3rd in response to what they described as heavy-handed tactics against them by police and city authorities. This has caused chaos in Cape Town, a port and tourist city of South Africa, as minibus taxis are the main means of transport for its commuters.
Taxi operators were caught in, also caught by law agencies where there was exchanges of gunfire. So it really was unpleasant. There have been losses of life, losses of income, and a family's livelihoods for a week of the month when people are living already as it is on the breadline in many of those communities. Then the larger sort of geopolitical or international costs to Cape Town and South Africa is that we've seen as a result of the taxi-related violence, travel advisories from various countries.
The situation then escalated to include violence, road closures, and vandalism of public and private vehicles, causing significant disruption to the daily lives of citizens.
And just like that report, deposed President Mohamed Bazoum has been charged by the junta in Niger, and the military leaders have announced their plans to persecute him for high treason and undermining national security. And this is the latest sign that the junta intends to resist international pressure to return power to Mr. Bazoum. Although the soldiers say they have gathered enough evidence against Mr. Bazoum, they provided no evidence in their video statement. Junta representative Ahmadu Abdurrahman made this announcement on state television, which came at a moment of high tension as the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, explores its options to restore civilian rule in Niger, including potential military intervention. At stake is not just the fate of Niger, a major uranium producer and Western ally in the fight against Islamists, but also the influence of rival global powers with strategic interests in West and Central Africa. And while there is hope, Niger's military government could be meeting with ECOWAS this week to dialogue on the recent coup. Sanctions imposed by the regional government are biting harder on the country's citizens. Our foreign correspondent, Amarachi Bani, spoke to a journalist in Niger about the conditions there.
The impact is that, firstly, the statement, the major statement issued by the ECOWAS leaders. Firstly, Nigeria, there is a kind of contract, moral contract between Niger and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Well, since 1916, Nigeria provided electricity to Niger. Well, Niger also, through what you call the Niger electricity company that we call Nigelec, also try to distribute, the electricity. And the first reaction, and also it is Nigeria who decided, the president of Nigeria who decided to cut, such electricity in Niger. And still now, Niger is. We are in a general blackout, no electricity, and just people are just wishing. We don't know exactly what is going, because all the economic activities, administrative in the office, if there is no electricity also, there is no, there is no activities. It can be, administrative, and also economic, financial, etc., etc. And this decision is the first thing that had a direct impact on the Nigerian living condition, and also, also the decision they close all the borders. We have when you take into account Nigeria, we have more than 1,000 kilometers we share along borders in Niger and Nigeria. While we have seven states of Federal Republic of Nigeria, which are on the Niger's, alongside Niger's and Nigeria's border. We have Kebbi State, we have Sokoto, we have Zamfara, we have Katsina State, we have Jigawa, you have Yobe, you have Borno, and we have a little of Adamawa. And you will see that all the Nigerians who are living in the areas, who are living alongside the borders, lives with Nigerians, with Nigerian style. And each time they are in Nigeria, they are on borders, just on their daily activities. And today, no going out, no going in. People are just suffering because the borders are closed. And all the Nigerians, most of the time, they are dependent to Nigerians, because each time they have to move to Nigeria to buy and to come back. And now there is no borders. That some people here call artificial borders, because according to them, it is not, it's natural like this. Some things that people design like this, artificial borders. And this also another situation, because all those who are living, on the Nigeria's, along Nigeria's borders today are facing a serious, situation, because no food, and also no business, all things, all their activities are suspended.
You can watch more of Alu Sani's interview on Diplomatic Channel, which comes up today at 8 p.m. in the UK and 11:30 p.m. on the DSTV platform right here on Channels Television. And joining me now to talk more about this, a security expert, David Otto, who joins me virtually from Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you very much, David, for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's talk about the latest development from Niger. It is the treason charges against Mr. Bazoum. This shows the junta already remains adamant in restoring him to power. They are not allowing that to happen, isn't it?
Well, it is very clear, as you rightly said, that the military junta has never had any intentions to reinstate President Bazoum. When military coups like this happen, it becomes almost impossible for any leader that was deposed to be reinstated. I mean, that's the history of military coups. Very few leaders have come back from that. What we have seen is that the military junta has now established a government. They've appointed ministers, appointed governors. They've now agreed, through the intervention of the Islamic scholars from Nigeria to, have a dialogue with ECOWAS. I'm preempting that the next step would be for them to kind of propose a date, for re-elections, for a democratic process. And that's where I think, the trend is going. In terms of whether President Bazoum is going to be reinstated, I think, that is now dead in the waters, especially with the recent talks about, prosecuting him or charging him for treasonable offense, which, of course, I think is also a deflective tactic, using that to kind of, deter some of the internal resistance movements, that, will be coming to challenge the authorities of the military regime. But, very interesting days to come, but we're quite happy that, the junta is now ready to talk.
Well, another issue is the fear a lot of people are having over Mr. Bazoum's condition and even for his family. Do you think there's still a risk on his life?
Well, there are a couple of risks which, must be considered. First of all, I'm not really convinced, that he's in a bad state. I think, of course, he will be restricted, from having certain liberties, which, of course, is not something that is normal for a president or anyone. But, he has been seen by several envoys. Of course, the junta has refused others to see him. I'm not so worried about his health. I think, the junta, sees him as their bargaining tool. He's their insurance policy. If anything happens to him, then that definitely brings down, the military, exposes the military movement to an impending attack. So they would make sure that he's well looked after. But I think, what is more important is, how do we proceed towards national stability? How do we move away from, the current chaos to a point where the Nigerians, who are taking the biggest hit in terms of this crisis, how do they, come back to some kind of normality? And I think that is where the focus should be on, getting that region back to stability and, lessons being learned, by all parties.
Well, we now see an alliance, so to speak, with Niger and Guinea, with even the Nigerian delegation already going to Guinea. That's also under military rule. Now, but let's take a look at the past, at the military takeovers in Mali, Burkina Faso. I mean, one can say that we did not see that kind of reaction from ECOWAS when it was that time. An intervention to help reinstate the president. But now it's happening, and everyone is curious to know what is the difference with Niger that the regional bloc is bent on deploying soldiers at this time? What is it with this present coup?
I think ECOWAS's concern is that this is now a coup pandemic, and if it doesn't do something drastic, for example, threatening to intervene through military, then perhaps, this is going to be repeated. So ECOWAS is really concerned that, one other president could be next. And therefore, the deployment or the directives to deploy forces is some kind of a deterrent. It's almost like a situation of enough is enough. But the issue here is that the military junta in Niger, has used the previous countries that did the same, Mali and Burkina Faso, as a shield. They've not only consolidated power within Niger by having alliances with other security agencies within the country, by buying the hearts and minds of the population using anti-colonial rhetorics. They've also gone far to get the backing of Mali and Burkina Faso. That makes it very difficult for ECOWAS, which is now literally split in the middle in terms of what is the best intervention strategy. So the military junta understands this, and it is using that in its advantage. But one of the critical points that ECOWAS has been criticized is, why are you using a different measure to, in Niger, and you're using different, strategies previously. And again, I think on ECOWAS's point, they've had enough, and they do not want to see any further military coups. But I think it's also something personal. Most of the ECOWAS presidents are quite worried about regime protection. So I think along the lines, they are thinking who is going to be next. And we must stop this now.
All right. Thank you very much, security expert David Otto from Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you so much for your contribution on Network Africa. The UN peacekeeping mission in Mali has said it brought forward its withdrawal from the northern town of Bre due to deteriorating security conditions. According to a statement, the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali has asked all concerned parties to refrain from any action that could further complicate that operation, adding that its withdrawing convoy had been attacked twice, with 3 people injured and evacuated to Timbuktu for treatment. The United Nations has further noted that the attacks against peacekeepers may constitute war crimes under international law. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, EHRC, has expressed grave concern over the deadly hostilities between the Ethiopian National Defense Force and the Fano armed group in the Amhara region state. In recent weeks, the National Army and Fano have been involved in heavy clashes in Amhara region, which has led to drastic action, such as the Israeli government evacuating its citizens and even Jewish people from the area last week. The EHCR has called on conflicting parties to immediately end all alleged violations of human rights laws, adding that it continues to monitor the situation. However, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission also cites the use of heavy artillery, resulting in the death and injuries of civilians and damage to property. And still in Ethiopia, authorities say an Ethiopian army drone has bombed protesters, killing dozens of people. According to the privately owned Ethiopian media services, at least 70 people were reportedly killed in that attack. However, hospital sources have said at least 26 people were killed and more than 70 people were injured by the airstrike. Airstrikes reportedly hit the demonstrators who had gathered in the town of Fenote Salam in protest against plans by federal forces to enter the area. Meanwhile, the claim has not been independently verified, and there's been no comment yet from the government in Addis Ababa. It was a joyful occasion for the graduating and induction student sets of the Carrington Youth Fellowship Initiative in Lagos this week. And for the graduating cohorts, their projects were focused on promoting civic engagement, economic empowerment, education, healthcare delivery, and environmental conservation. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Amarachi Bani reports.
It's been a long and exciting 12 months for the latest cohorts of the Carrington Youth Fellowship Initiative. The latest set, drawn from 3 southwest states of Lagos, Oyo and Ogun, were involved in various projects and engaged with mentors in various fields of endeavor. Today, 45 of them go into the world, not just as sci-fi fellows, but world changers.
For the longest time, we've talked about African solutions to African problems, right? We absolutely need African solutions to African problems. But we also need African solutions to global problems, right? And we need your help. As the torch of service and leadership is passed on to you, remember that the journey ahead is challenging, but as we've seen from your graduating fellows, it's filled with extraordinary possibilities for positive change.
Witnessing their graduation is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Youth and Social Development in Lagos State, Mrs. Zainab Okeosoitolu, and representatives of the Nigeria Youth Future Funds, the Ford Foundation, and the MacArthur Foundation, among others, as partners of the fellowship program. Awards are handed out to those who performed exceptionally well in all 3 states, to the delight of the crowd who cheer on their favorites.
It's not because I'm the best person. I think I've just been put on the spotlight to be an ambassador for the core values. And I feel it's a huge responsibility. I feel deeply honored because it's along the line of some people that I respect, like Mr. Shola. I'm learning he was also a best fellow. And I feel like my possibilities are endless. And I feel deeply honored.
As great fellows, fantastic youths, doing great things. And to be counted worthy of the award of the best fellow is really a great privilege, and I'm really excited.
Inductees, 65 of them, got the opportunity to be recognized and get a photo with the Consul General. They also look forward to many months of mentorship and training.
I think networking is one of the most important takeouts for me, being a sci-fi fellow, the ability to meet people who are doing amazing stuff in their communities, and also the ability to learn skills that would impact my goals of being a future leader.
It's an opportunity to receive hands-on mentorship and to improve, contribute, and make a social impact in Nigeria.
Sci-Fi President Olusola Owonikoko, who is in his second tenure, highlights the importance of the fellowship program and its benefits.
In itself, it's a one-year-long fellowship program where young people are trained. There's a rich curriculum, and then they get funding to design and implement programs that have direct impact on Nigerian society. And from there, we've seen organizations started. We've seen people have access to global opportunities, become policymakers and do great things.
Launched in 2011, the Carrington Youth Fellowship Initiative is the only homegrown fellowship program by the U.S. government in Nigeria. It was established by the U.S. in honor of former ambassador to Nigeria, Walter Carrington, as a dynamic youth-based initiative. Although open to only people in the southwest states of Lagos, Oyo, Ondo, and Osun for now, there are plans to expand to Enugu and Delta states.
In the month of August, South Africa pays tribute to Women's Month, a time to reflect on the courageous women who fought against the oppressive apartheid laws, as well as the remarkable progress achieved since then. It also honors the role of women in South African society. The Consul General of the People's Republic of China in Johannesburg, Tang Zongdong, delivered a keynote speech at the South Africa-China Women's Forum. That event was collaboratively organized with the Africa-Chinese Women's Association. During the event, women representing various sectors came together to engage in discussions about the range of social challenges that women encounter. They also explored potential solutions aimed at improving the prevailing circumstances. A South Africa correspondent, Innocent Samusa, reports.
The economy of South Africa owes much of its success to the significant contributions made by women throughout its history. A vast array of exceptional South African women have played pivotal roles, with notable figures including Winnie Mandela, Lillian Ngoyi, and Albertina Sisulu. These historical icons were fervent political activists who courageously fought against the apartheid regime.
And the contributions of women.
In another city, the Consulate General of China in Johannesburg has chosen to celebrate women under the theme Women Together for a Shared Future. In focus are crucial topics such as BRICS cooperation from a woman's perspective and empowering independent and self-sufficient women.
Our two governments have engaged in dialogues and discussions on issues related to gender equality, women's empowerment, and so on.
A persistent concern that has endured over time is the ongoing struggle faced by women in business. However, these resolute women remain committed to actively stand against it.
But if I look at the economies, both of South Africa, I'm not so sure about that of China, but certainly of BRICS countries more generally when it comes to women's representation in management, women's access to capital, women's ownership of firms, it still remains a challenge.
Women can be key role players in industry and development.
A distinguished panel of women engaged in a comprehensive dialogue addressing the obstacles and remedies pivotal to making substantial contributions within a predominantly male-dominated environment.
I think with any industry, be it being an architect, being an engineer, being in the attorney's profession, if you are firstly black, for me, and secondly, if you're female, even if you're a non-black female, it's actually quite difficult world. I can recall for me to find articles was a challenge on its own. I don't think we have the resources that our other counterparts have to kickstart our careers. So I think if we provide the support and the structure for upcoming attorneys, then we are obviously going to produce high caliber attorneys.
Navigation is with effort, and so is with anything else that you do in life. I think it's about keeping your head above the waters and understanding that although the people in the room don't always look and sound like you, that you have valuable information to convey, that you have an input that you can give, and remembering that always kind of keeps you on top of your craft.
It is worth noting that this celebration coincides closely with the upcoming BRICS summit. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Simos, Channels Television News.
The student athletes from across the globe spent their final days in the Onvese village, where making themselves cultural souvenirs and bidding farewell to new friends they have made in the events host of the Chendong in southwest China. The athletes village has welcomed more than 6,500 participants from 113 countries and regions since the event started on July the 22nd. Well, the athletes competed in 269 events spanning 18 distinct sports from July the 28th to August the 8th. The experience, however, did not leave out South African athletes.
I did paper cutting. I previously have done the bamboo weaving, kite making, and rope weaving. I feel really happy, and I'm gonna miss this place so much. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of unique things, like this paper cutting. I would never be able to do this back home. I really love it. I'm having so much fun here.
I feel very, very sad to leave China. It's been absolutely amazing living here. Today is our 14th day in China, so it's 2 weeks, and I will absolutely miss this place and all the volunteers.
And that's all we draw the curtains on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. Have a wonderful week.